Kafi! Enough, proclaimed 4-year-old Adam. Without shedding a tear, this brave child stood up to the terrorists that had seized his church and slain his father before his eyes. In response to his act of defiance, the assailants killed him in cold blood. The Syriac people are among the earliest Christians, tracing their lineage back to the Syriac Orthodox Church during the times of St. Peter. The Syriac Catholic Church came into existence in 1783, when a group of the Syriac faithful entered into full communion with the Roman Catholic Church. Sadly, religious persecution is no new phenomenon for the Syriacs, for they, along with their Christian brothers, including the Assyrians and the Chaldeans, have undergone centuries of torment. Most pronounced during the Christian genocide imposed by the Turkish government in the early 20th century. 3 entire Syriac Catholic dioceses vanished. Despite this hardship, the Iraqi Christian population has persevered and built up communities centered on their churches, such as Our Lady of Salvation Cathedral in Baghdad, Iraq. On October 31st, 2010, Raghda al-Wafi, a faithful member of this church, was making her way to attend the Sunday evening Mass. She was excited to inform Father Wasim Sabih, who had recently wed her and her husband, of her recent pregnancy and ask for a blessing. Father Wasim, with assistance from Father Thair Saad Abdal and Father Rafael Qatemi, was leading celebration of the Mass. A loud explosion and gunfire was heard outside the church. A few parishioners fled the church in fear, while others sought refuge within the walls that housed their prayers. Moments later, numerous terrorists, armed with automatic weapons and explosives, entered the building and let loose a barrage of bullets that caught any worshiper not able to take cover. They exclaimed, "All of you are infidels. We are here to avenge the burning of the Qur'ans and the jailing of Muslim women in Egypt." Father Wasim, while grasping a cross before him, pleaded to have the innocent parishioners spared. He was thrown to the ground and executed immediately. The 4-hour ordeal that would leave an entire parish decimated had just begun. Parishioner Marie Frege was caught in the gunfire of the initial siege. Having been shot in the leg, she would lay in a pool of her own blood for the length of this unthinkable tragedy. Father Raphael led parishioner Madeleine Michal, along with some 60 other faithful, to the priest's dressing room, where they sealed the door with bookshelves and knocked out the lights. They quietly said their prayers, hearing the sounds of the massacre carried out just beyond the door. The gunmen showed no mercy as they exclaimed, "We will go to paradise if we kill you, and you will go to hell," while continuing to horrify the parishioners. Father Thair shielded a family with his body, saying, "Kill me, not this family with children." The father was martyred in the church he served. The militants displayed no remorse, declaring it was halal, or permissible according to Islamic law, to kill Christians. The surviving victims of the initial onslaught were beaten and forced into an inner hall of the church. The hatred in the hearts of the assailants was apparent, as they told the churchgoers that they would all die. An hour into the attack, the militants began chanting, "Allahu Akbar, God is great." This was followed by a loud explosion and a new wave of screams. Father Raphael and Madeleine, along with their fellow parishioners, continued to hide in the priest's dressing room. The gunmen eventually found them. After failing to break into the room, they tossed a grenade through a window that killed 4 and wounded several more, including Father Raphael as he shielded Madeleine. Despite his injuries, Father Raphael still encouraged the group to continue their prayers for deliverance. Worshipper Munna Abdullah Haddad witnessed more atrocities from the church hall. As the parishioners were stood beside a wall, the assailants opened fire on the younger members. Munna appealed to them to take her life and spare her grandson. He was shot dead before her eyes, and she was shot as well. An elite Iraqi anti-terrorist unit called the Golden Force made plans to lay siege upon the church when it was decided that negotiation was futile. They set off diversionary explosives as they stormed the building. Some of the gunmen, seeing that the end was near, began putting on explosive belts. The Iraqi troops were initially held back, and a brief shootout ensued with the defenseless parishioners caught in the middle. The gunfire ended with at least one of the terrorists setting off their explosives. They sent ball bearings designed to inflict the maximum amount of damage on human flesh throughout the church. The battle was over, leaving more than 30 Christians, including 2 young priests, martyred in the very place they went to pray for peace. Among the senseless losses were Raghda and her unborn child, who had just received Father Wasim's sought-after blessing. This attack was perpetrated by the Al-Qaeda-affiliated Islamic State of Iraq, who labeled Our Lady of Salvation as the dirty place of the infidel, which Iraqi Christians have long used as a base to fight Islam.
Joined by Bishop Sarhad Yamo. He is of the eparchy of St. Peter the Apostle. Now, he's in San Diego, but he is a Chaldean, and these are his brothers and sisters and our brothers and sisters. The Chaldean faith is part of the Eastern Catholic faith. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about a really dramatic, tragic, very urgent, very alarming situation in the whole Middle East, but especially in Iraq. Now, Iraq is the stage, the scene where barbarism, where ferocity, where of really dark forces is exercised in front of the eyes of the whole world. And how can the American army be there? This is 7-8 years is there, and this is happening in front of our eyes in plain day. So this is very alarming, and I call on every person, man of goodwill. This is not something that could be tolerated in our time and world. So something must be done. And amazingly, even an inquiry, an investigation.
Yeah, that hasn't happened yet.
Is not even somehow activated under the auspices of international institutions, and especially endorsed by our country here, United States. Let us start with an inquiry. I mean, how can this happen without even having an inquiry internationally verified to reach to the bottom of the truth? Who is behind it?
Bishop Yamo.
Why the government is not, the Iraqi government is not doing anything about it? Why United States, our country is there, is on the ground?
Bishop Yamo, before we run out of time, I just want to ask you this. Considering the discrimination that the Chaldeans are facing on the ground and the tolerance of the Iraqi security forces for this kind of extremist violence, what are your hopes for the people of the Chaldean faith there, and do you think they can remain, or will it be scattered throughout this diaspora?
Really, how long can anyone absorb this kind of atrocity? How long? I mean, we were there, Chaldeans in Iraq, were there for thousands of years now, persecuted. I mean, Timur-Lang, Hulago, the Turkish Ottoman even genocide that happened, and until now they survived. Christians of Iraq, mostly Chaldeans, they survived. Chaldeans are 99% Catholic. They survived. Can you imagine that now? Yeah. They cannot survive, and sure, if that is their fate, if the world is just watching, then at least do something for them to go somewhere safely.
Yeah, fine, give them a safe harbor, yeah. Bishop Jamal, thanks so much for joining us, and we certainly will not stop reporting this story. We've been covering this for a long time.